All right, guys, welcome back to this week's episode of the Amazon Wholesale Podcast. So as we do every week, we've got a really good episode in store. We're going to be sitting down with Tyler Winkler. Now, Tyler is a 20-year-old Amazon seller. He started off doing online arbitrage. He's now transitioned to the wholesale business model, and he's absolutely crushing it. He's pushing, I think, 30, 40K or more per month in revenue as a 20-year-old college student. So once you hear his story, you'll be able to see that, like, hey, if he can do this thing, anybody can do this thing. And I think you're going to get a lot of value out of the conversation. Tyler is also a member of our Wholesale Network community, and you're going to hear about how his experience in the community, where he was before versus after joining, and a lot of good stuff about the community as well. So if you're interested in joining the Wholesale Network, you can head over to wholesalenetwork.io and join myself, join Tyler, and the other 160 folks that we have within that community. Now, before we get into the conversation with Tyler, we're going to briefly touch on a message from the sponsor of this week's episode, and that sponsor is Boxum. So for those of you guys that are still shipping products to FBA using Seller Central, you are stuck in 2010 because, guys, Boxum makes this process dead simple. And they make this process simple by providing a user interface that's quick, it's responsive. It's literally as simple as pasting in the ASIN that you want to ship to Amazon, entering your quantity, entering your cost, entering your supplier, and then Boxum pretty much takes it from there. So it takes what used to take hours in creating these shipments inside Seller Central and condenses the workflow down to 10, 15 minutes for even some of these larger shipments. So if you guys are interested in checking out Boxum, you can head over to boxum.com. That's BOXEM.com and get a free 14-day trial to Boxum. Now, with that, we're going to jump right into the conversation here with Tyler. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us, man. I am looking forward to chopping it up here for the next 30 minutes and kind of hearing about your business.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome, man. So I kind of gave the super brief introduction to you and kind of what you're working on in the intro there. So could you take, 25, 30 seconds and just give us the elevator pitch, right? Just describe your business and kind of what it is that you do.
Yeah, so my name's Tyler Winkler. On social media, I'm known as Winks. And basically, we do Amazon wholesale. So we buy everyday products through wholesale acquisitions and also trying to go the brand direct side. But yeah, we buy products in whole, sell them on Amazon to consumers, and it's going pretty good. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you're doing the classic wholesale business model, right? Working with buying from distributors, working on buying directly from some brands as well, and just generally scaling the business via wholesale, which, as we know, right, is the most scalable way to sell on Amazon. And that's great. And, as I mentioned in the intro, right, you are a Wholesale Network member. You were like member number 4 or 5 or something like that. You were one of the first people to join us. And if you wouldn't mind, just give us a quick rundown on where your business was before joining the Wholesale Network versus where it is today. And obviously, be as specific as you'd like and as you can be in terms of like revenue, profit, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so long story short, we did OA. That was our main business model a couple of months ago. I believe I joined in April. And like you said, me and a friend joined. We were one of the first couple to be in there. And completely new to wholesale, had no clue what I was really doing, but saw that needed something more sustainable. We had a couple of replenishable products through online arbitrage. And I was seeing the inconsistency of it all and how much work had to go into just for a product and might not even be able to buy next month. So I wanted something more sustainable and switched to wholesale. We were doing around maybe 10K a month in OA before the Wholesale Network. And yeah, over the summer, really took it serious, as mentioned. I'm in college, so I had all summer to really work on this wholesale model. And now I'm starting to see the upsides of it and basically laid the brickwork, and that's how we're doing now.
So you said you were doing about like 10K a month in revenue back before you joined, right? When you were doing mainly online arbitrage. What does revenue look like on a monthly basis now that you're, 4 or 5 months into wholesale and 4 or 5 months into having joined the Wholesale Network?
Yeah, so last month we did around 43,000 in sales.
Wow.
This month we sold out a lot of inventory, but we're expecting it to be a little lower just because I haven't kept up with the replens. And now we're trying to go the brand direct side of it things. So kind of starting from square one again, but I'm confident that with the resources in the wholesale network, I'll be able to scale just as I did a couple months ago.
Well, I'm confident in that too, because you've already proven that you can make the transition from OA to wholesale. Like you've literally already done that. And I mean, your revenue increased by what, about 400% from having started with online arbitrage, now having done wholesale, went from 10K a month doing OA to last month having done, like you said, 43K in 1 month from wholesale. So that's literally a 400% increase. I want to, I want to take a second and kind of salute you for that, because I mean, that's impressive in and of itself, but doing it with a brand new business model that was new to you is even harder. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of help smooth that process along. And I know you've also made some really good connections there within the group. Matt, who's the one who kind of introduced you to the group, and I know you've been giving to the group and collaborating quite a bit. And I know that type of stuff comes back in spades for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, let's talk a little more tactical, right? So before you joined the wholesale network, you were not doing any wholesale at all. Is that correct? I guess my question here is, had you attempted wholesale before joining the network? And if so, what are you doing differently now versus what you were doing before you joined?
Yeah, so before the wholesale network, I really didn't do any outreach, did nothing, didn't have like a website set up, any of that. So for me, I was starting like brand new, had to learn everything inside out. All I knew is you buy in bulk, you sell individually, and that's pretty much how the wholesale model was, like what I thought originally. So from there, a lot of the resources in the wholesale network, I was able to vet distributors, find distributors, and as mentioned, Corey just mentioned, my friend Matt, we would just kind of tackle some of the different strategies we learned, and we just try and find as many good distributors as possible. Found one really good one from the beginning. It's who I still use. And when I actually went to ASD in August and hung out with the Wholesale Network group, got to meet the distributor in person, really upped my relationship with them as a whole. And my sales rep over our distributor, she's very good to me now. I'm not saying before, but we just now have that in-person connection and
Right.
put a name to a face. So yeah.
Well, and that's something that like I think is going to serve you so well going forward. And what I mean by that is, yes, obviously the fact that you met this supplier in person, face to face, but like you kind of glossed over a sentence that I want to touch on. You said, well, yeah, we at ASD, right, this past August, we did a big walkthrough with all the wholesale network members. So there was like 20 or 25 of us that, I mean, honestly, we were all going to the same booths and talking to the same suppliers. And when we stopped by the booth of your main number one supplier, you didn't have a scarcity mindset at all. You were like, hey guys, like this is my top supplier, right? Here's my sales rep. Here's this sales support rep. Like, here's what we're buying. You and Matt in particular, like you guys were incredibly open and honest with our group there about, yep, this is who we work with. This is what we buy. Just like having that abundance mentality, because I know that you guys know that, well, hey, even if the other 25 people here doing this walkthrough, we're all to start working with my top supplier. Well, I have that relationship in place, right? So they're going to be new customers, whereas I'm an existing serious customer. I probably get better pricing than them. And at the end of the day, we're not stepping on each other's toes, right? So I just kind of wanted to highlight that as being what I think one of the big reasons for your success and just anybody's success in general is they have that abundance mentality and they're willing to share resources and they're not hiding, right? Like nobody really has much to hide in this business and in this community. And that's one of the things I love about it.
Exactly. And just touching base on that, the whole relationship aspect, my whole mindset going into it was probably not going to make a penny off the first, second, maybe even the third PO. But once you get past those first couple, that's when they'll start to take you really seriously. And that's where they'll offer products. Hey, I have this. Do you want it?
Right.
You get the first pick of everything. So that's, to me, what makes the wholesale model so valuable is that the person next to you can't do the same thing that you can do. So that to me kind of helps your competition level.
Dude, exactly. And it's so funny. Somebody was giving me a hard time on Twitter recently. They were like, "Oh, I'll expose one of Corey's top suppliers, reply to this tweet." I'm like, like everybody knows who it is. Like it's not a secret. Like
Yeah.
I've openly told like a million people who I buy from, like it's literally not a secret because again, I could literally tweet my top suppliers and not be worried for a second about competition because some random guy, that reaches out to these suppliers, they haven't spent the money that I've spent with them. They don't have the relationship with the sales rep that I have. So you're not even really creating, like you said, right? In your case, you weren't creating competition for yourself. If anything, you were establishing the fact that, you're confident in your business, you know what you're doing and you're doing good business. And I love that. And also too, and we'll kind of get on to the next question after I touch on this topic. But one more thing I wanted to dive in on is that face-to-face interaction, right? That you got with your supplier at the trade show where you met them face-to-face. And now, again, placing orders with your supplier after never having met them before, that's great, right? They're going to take you seriously. They're going to be like, Tyler's a good customer. He orders, he pays his bills on time. But when you couple that with having met your sales rep in person, face to face, it just takes the relationship to a whole new level, right? They were already comfortable with you before, but now they've met you and they're like, oh yeah, that's Tyler, right? We shook hands last week at the show. So anytime you can get face to face with your suppliers, and this is for those listening, right? For the audience, anytime you can get face to face with your suppliers, even if it's for just a couple of minutes, even if it's just for a cup of coffee, it all works, right? It all ends up going into I guess building that long-term relationship. Would you agree?
100%. And also for me, like when I stopped by the booth, they were like, they didn't even recognize me. Like in their head, they were like, I thought you were this like 40-year-old guy, just because all you're doing is just phone calls with them. So they kind of gave me that respect. They're like, oh my gosh, like he's hustling at this young age. Like,
right.
It's going to, like I said, it's going to set you apart just by meeting, whether you're young or not, but just by meeting them in person, they can put that name to a face.
Totally. And that's something for the young people out there, right? Like I think being young in this, or really in any business, being a young entrepreneur in general, I think is a huge, huge advantage. And now some people think it's a disadvantage because they're like, oh, well, people don't take me seriously. And all my customers are, twice my age, right? In a lot of cases. But when you look at it from the opposite perspective, it's like if you're, in your case, a 20-year-old entrepreneur placing these big wholesale orders and networking with these vendors and doing all this stuff, a lot of these sales reps and a lot of these brand owners and a lot of these people look at you, Tyler, and they're like, oh, he's me, right? Like he's who I was 30 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever. So like, yeah, I want to work with him, or yeah, I want to help him out. And that's been my experience too. Like as a young entrepreneur, if you're hungry and you're serious and you want to learn, like everybody wants to help with you. Like you'll have mentors coming out of nowhere that are just offering you advice and feedback and connections and opening doors and all this stuff. So I know we have a lot of young listeners here, and I think that's great. So again, whether you're selling on Amazon or just if you're in business, period, I think being young is a big advantage personally.
Definitely. I 100% agree.
Cool. So let's flash back to a little bit, right? Let's go back like 6 to 9 months, maybe even a whole year when you were doing mainly online arbitrage, right? So let's talk about challenges in scaling online arbitrage. What challenges were you facing? And two, at the time when you didn't really know about wholesale, was your only thought like, well, hey, I just have to find more OA products, or I've just got to scale this some way? Like, did you think that was the only way to scale at that point?
Yeah, for me, it was, okay, I just need to spend more money, find more products. It was all like, you had to not only find the products, but you also had to worry, okay, well, is it going to crash next month?
Right.
And to find those actual loopholes where you can consistently buy each month, like that could take weeks to months just to find one good lead. So it was all for me about the effort of just finding those leads. And some people may argue just like to scale off and to scale up in general, you might have to build a team, but for wholesale, you can to an extent, but finding all those products yourself with wholesale is much easier, in my opinion, than OA.
Yeah, and I would have to second that because again, with OA, and I always equate it to like you're on the hamster wheel, right? With OA, it's like you've always got to be finding that next product or waiting on that next sale or chasing that next, discounted or that next discount. So you're always having to do that. And if you don't have employees, then you as the business owner need to be on your computer every day for hours per day, sourcing product and buying product. Because if you don't do that, then you don't make any money, right? You have no inventory flowing into the business and your profit is going to stall. Whereas with wholesale, kind of like you said, and I completely agree. And in fact, I'm proof of this. I only have 2 virtual assistants in the Philippines and me. We're the only people in the business. And, we make literally tens of thousands of dollars in profit every month from selling on Amazon. You don't need a big team. You just need to be willing to put in that legwork up front, which quite frankly is more effort than it takes to do OA, right? To start wholesale and to get momentum. But it's like once you get that momentum going with wholesale, it's so much easier and takes so much less time to keep it going, right?
Yeah.
You can ride out some of the same suppliers for years. You can ride out some of the same brands for years. It's just more consistent and it's just more longer term. And it sounds like that's been your experience as well.
Yes, most definitely.
Good stuff. So since joining the wholesale network, right, let's get a little more tactical again. Like how has your process for, let's just say, finding suppliers, how has that changed or how have you kind of dialed that in since joining the wholesale network?
So for me, it was all about first landing your suppliers, right? So you got to get a handful of them, and it comes with time. And the different methods that the wholesale network taught me, I found a good handful of vetted distributors. So then from there, it's okay. You got to get the catalog, and sometimes this process could take a couple of weeks. You got to follow up with the distributor, in their best interests. For whatever reason, they think that if you're gonna get an account made, how do I know he's actually going to buy something? So for me, it was being that confidence level, like, oh yeah, would love to take a look at the Excel spreadsheet, can let you know in a couple of days and go from there. So for me, I was going tried all sorts of niches across the board. So it kind of varied industry to industry, but for me, I'm in the health and beauty right now. And for me, it was, okay, I get their catalog, and these health and beauty catalogs, probably, I can't even tell you, 10,000 lines.
They're big. Yeah, they have a lot of these distributors carry tens of thousands of products. Yep.
Massive. So for me, I had one virtual assistant, and I've been really trying hard to teach him exactly how to source through these. But for me, a lot of the legwork up front was just me going through them all. And this would vary from UPC scanner, manual, and then also, this is a good one, just reverse sourcing other people's storefronts.
Oh yeah.
And then looking on the spreadsheet, okay, does this distributor have it? And a lot of the times they'll have it. Price might be off, but you say I was taught, how many can I buy to get this price? And a lot of the times, you'll maybe go 10-20% for your 10-20 or 2 shots out of the 10. Maybe you'll get that pricing that you want, right? But the only way to find out is if you ask. So, and it never hurts to ask.
Dude, that is a hack. That is a huge tip for those of you guys listening here that Tyler's kind of learned from what we've taught there. In fact, Tyler, I'm going to make a side note as soon as we're done recording. I want to do a standalone training on reverse sourcing from other wholesale sellers' storefronts, because that in and of itself, that is probably one of 4 or 5 sourcing methods that, that we teach and that we use and that we have content on. But quite honestly, that is one of the most effective methods, if not the most effective method, right? And the reason I love that method is because these other sellers have already done the legwork for you, right? If you look at their storefront and they're carrying, let's say, 5 products from a given brand, well, you know that those 5 products are profitable, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be carrying them. So it is so much easier to say, okay, what's Tyler carrying in his storefront, right? And then I say, oh, he's got these 3 products. Great. I'm just going to make a note of those 3 products, go back to my distributor and see if they have them. Right. And like you said, if they don't have them at a price that's profitable for me, we teach you guys to ask that question of, well, hey, how many units do I need to buy to get X price? Right. X price being a price that will be profitable for you. So That's an awesome method. And I know that you and Matt and some other guys in the group have been collaborating on like, how do we make this outreach process automated? How do we make it painless? And how, quite honestly, how do we make it very profitable? So, and I know you brought on a virtual assistant as well to help with the sourcing side. So really, really good stuff all around.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, how would you say the process has changed when it comes to contacting suppliers after having joined the network and kind of listening in on some of the calls that we post there in the resources vault, and just after having kind of brushed up on your sales skills?
Yeah. So for me, probably if I hadn't gone through the wholesale network, I would just be calling these distributors saying, "Hey, I'm an Amazon reseller. Like, what Amazon products do you have?" Right. And like,
Right.
you know, just instant hang up. So now I know what a valid pitch looks like and how to not only just get the products, but offer value to them,
Right.
and how you can incentivize them to work with you for whatever reason. Like, I just want to give them my money, right? And for
Yeah.
a lot of the time, these guys, whatever reason, will not. They always got an excuse. Oh yeah, like we don't sell to Amazon sellers, and here you are. You have a whole bunch of money ready to spend with them. But there's different ways that I've learned where you can kind of not white lie per se, but portray yourself in a certain situation so you can incentivize them to sell to you versus the
Right.
guy next door.
Well, and it's all positioning, right? I mean, there's no lying about it. That is one of the main things. Quite honestly, something I think we do a good job of in the content exclusive to the group. There, for example, when I had the Zoom call with a brand 2 weeks ago, right? I recorded the whole thing. It was like 26 minutes long. Threw it up there in the resources vault for you guys to then access and learn from. And one of the compliment or some of the feedback that I got on that call was about the positioning, right? It's like, well, you position yourself as a partner, you position yourself as a problem solver, and it really doesn't matter if you're talking to a brand or a distributor. Every
Yeah.
supplier has problems, and the customer that can help them solve those problems is going to be the customer that gets preferential treatment, whether it's better pricing, whether it's better terms, or whether it's literally just the ability to work with them and sell the product. So I know for a fact you've learned some good things on positioning, and that's really what it is, right? It's just positioning yourself in a strong light.
Exactly.
Awesome. Really good tips and insight there. So let's talk about like, what is the time commitment that you kind of put into scaling the wholesale business, right? So again, if we go back another 4 or 5 months, you just had joined the wholesale network, you are kind of just deciding that you want to take the leap into wholesale. What did the time commitment look like, and like how much effort were you putting in to kind of get it off the ground?
Yeah. So for me, I was on summer break this past summer, so I really wasn't doing anything besides wholesale, right? I had that cash flow, luckily, where I could do this for the most part, aside from school full time. So for me, I was working probably 12 hours days, like waking up, sitting in front of my laptop pretty much all day, just finding distributors, whatever part of the process I was doing, there was something to do each and every single day. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I did a lot of the legwork over the summer. And one thing I'm struggling right now, because school's getting back in session, all this and that, is find that time balance. But for me, it's whether that's waking up early in the morning. There's 100% maintenance to keep your wholesale business going, and just scaling that will help make the maintenance just a little lower for yourself. So
Right.
I'm at the point right now where trying to outsource, and when I need to find new products, it's not me putting in 14-hour days again. So for me, it's all about, like, I'm reading the book Buy Back Your Time right now,
Yep.
and for me, it's just like understanding that you should try and limit how much you're actually working with the greatest output possible. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Well, and I love that. That concept is one that's just, I love talking about like productivity and time management and all this stuff. For whatever reason, that's just always been something I'm drawn to. And I think that, I mean, you're in that phase of the business, right? You're creating systems, you're hiring, you're delegating, you're building a team, you're doing all the things necessary so that, like you said, when it comes back time to switch into scaling mode again, it's not, well, hey, it's time to scale, so Tyler's going to have to go back to putting in 14-hour days. It's, hey, it's time to scale, so Tyler's got systems and a team in place that can do most of the heavy lifting. So maybe he only has to do 2 to 4 hours of work per day. But that 2 to 4 hours of work is like the really high level stuff that actually moves the needle. That is, the stuff that most people spend like the whole week trying to do. Like, is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. And I think in the book it teaches all that perfectly. Buy back your time.
Yeah, and guys, for those of you listening, the book he's referring to there, it's called "Buy Back Your Time," and it's by Dan Martell. Really, one of the so I've read many productivity books, and that is the best one by far. It's not even close. In fact, that's the only one you need to read. So I highly recommend you guys, if you're trying to learn about outsourcing and delegating and literally just buying back your time, go check out that book because it's a fantastic read. So good stuff there, man. Again, more super tactical when it comes to getting time back and kind of outsourcing a lot of the day to day. Now, let's talk about the next 6 to 12 months, right? So, based on the results that you've seen so far, right, the business grew literally 400% from before joining the wholesale network versus after, from having done online arbitrage to now doing wholesale mainly. Where do you see the business in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so I'm looking by end of Q4, I want to be hitting consistent 100K months. And for me, right now, here's a really good hack in terms of capital. I have a lot of 0% APR cards open right now. They probably won't renew till, or the 0% term will probably go away next summer. So these next couple of months, I'm really trying to double down and completely use all that capital. So that's a great way to scale. And then hopefully we'll see down the line, maybe get some even more funding. But to get to that 100K mark a month, it should be reasonable. For me, it's about finding better distributors, get better products and pricing. So to me, that's how I'm really going to scale. But the next goal is pretty much 100K a month.
Well, and I'm incredibly confident that you're going to get there. And when you think about it this way too, right? So think about it from this perspective. So if you want to sell $100,000 in revenue in a month, for wholesale sellers, our cost of goods is typically about 55% of our revenue. So that means that if you want to sell 100K in a month, your buy cost on that 100K is going to be about 55K, right? So really, you've just got to have 55K worth of inventory that moves reasonably quickly in stock at Amazon to do about 100K in sales in a given month, right? So that's kind of how I would look at it. It seems a lot more achievable that way, right? Because I know you're spending probably that much per month anyways. It's just a matter of making sure that's going into good products that are profitable, that are turning over quickly, and that that you can replenish ideally. So I think you're a lot closer than even you probably realize.
Yeah, that's a great way to break it down.
So another question for you regarding the wholesale network specifically. So was there anything that surprised you about joining the wholesale network or about our community there, or really anything about the network at all that was kind of surprising to you?
Yeah, so for me, I think the whole networking aspect of the wholesale network, I think that's one of the best parts of it. So going out to ASD, met one of my friends, Justin. Uh, we were in the same hotel. He was like, "Yo, I'm in the wholesale network. Like, let's link up." Literally, probably spent the whole 4 days, 4 or 5 days with them, like 24 hours a day. Great guy.
Yep.
So I would have never met him. We all have a group chat right now, talking pretty much every day in it. So for me, that was one of the most important parts. And then, of course, access to Corey, Jonah, all the other coaches, Kaj. There's the idea of like them always being there. If you have a question, it's one text away. So for me, that was probably the two most valuable parts of it. And then obviously the resources, but to what I've really learned these past couple of months is the scaling. To scale, you need a network. And for me, that's one thing. I have a good group now, but the more the merrier. So that's the point I'm also at too.
Yeah, and I mean, I second that, right? That's my experience as well. Because, and listen, like I put my money where my mouth is. Like I am a part of multiple other paid communities, right? Mastermind groups, mentorships, all the good stuff. And exactly like you said, it's like the network component of these groups or of these masterminds or of these communities that anybody joins, like that is the ROI, right? Now, of course, if somebody joins a wholesale network and they take the wholesale challenge and they go through all the resources and they never communicate or contribute at all to the community, they're still going to get their money's worth. Like they're still going to get a ton of good quality information. But it's the people like you and it's the people like Matt and Justin and Sean and all the other folks we have inside the group who are constantly networking and constantly communicating and constantly pouring into the community and providing value. Those are the people that they go from getting like a 3 4 5x return on their money to like 10 50 100x, because guess what, those people that you network with and that you meet inside of a community, well, not only do you collaborate with them on your Amazon business, but those are the people that like 15 years from now you're buying real estate deals with and like investing in these like companies with and just doing all this stuff like on a 5, 10, 20, 50 year time frame as opposed to like a 5 month time frame, right? So that is, you nailed it. Like that's by far the biggest ROI of any sort of community or any sort of mastermind or any sort of group at all. So I agree
Yeah,
with you there for sure.
exactly.
Awesome. So another kind of one of the final questions I have for you. So if someone is on the fence about joining the wholesale network, what would you tell them?
I would say I understand that every information, any price for information, it's always going to be higher valued, right? But it's priced that way for a reason. So for me, and what Corey just said, you can't really look at it as, okay, I'm going to make this much next month off it. You have to look on a month to year basis and just look far out in the future, right? How is this going to set me up for my future? And for me, I was like, okay, what's the worst thing that happens? I don't learn anything, which did not happen at all. So for me, I'm young, I can take a risk, and it was probably the best thing I could have done for my wholesale business and Amazon business in general. So for me, that price is worth it because you're gonna meet new people, you're gonna learn new strategies. It's honestly, for me, it was a no brainer.
Awesome. Well, that's great feedback, man. And like you said, I think the point that you made about having that long-term time horizon is something that everybody should listen to, right? And there's a great quote that I heard. It goes something along the lines of, I think it's like you underestimate what you can do in 5 years, but you overestimate what you can do in 1 year, right? And it's very
Exactly.
similar to my experience in starting the wholesale business. I thought I was going to do 7 figures in year one. And in reality, it took me 3 years to hit 7 figures in revenue in a single calendar year. So having that long-term mindset, being willing to invest, and knowing that the connections inside of any community or group are going to be the ROI, I think that's fantastic advice. And now, guys, again, this is for the audience and for the listeners here. If you're interested in joining the Wholesale Network, hanging out with me, hanging out with Tyler, hanging out with the 160 plus folks that we have inside there, you can head over to wholesalenetwork.io and you can apply, and then we can jump on the phone and see if you're a good fit. So with that, Tyler, any final thoughts you'd like to tell the viewers?
I would just say that you just got to get started. For me, if you just keep putting it off, keep waiting, this and that, you're just like setting yourself up for failure. If you just get started, that ultimately is going to be the best way to learn. As much as Corey, Joe, and all of them can teach you, you just have to get started, and lessons will help lessons will set you up for success from what you learn, but the only way to learn is actually doing it and embracing yourself in the space. So just get started.
Well said, because information alone is worthless. Action is everything. So that is perfectly said. For those of you watching, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, take a quick second. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, just give us a quick 5-star review. It takes literally 2 seconds and it goes a long way in helping us get this episode in front of more people. So, Tyler, where can people connect with you? Where can they network with you? Where can they kind of find out more about you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Winks Enterprises, and that's spelled Winkz. And then on Twitter, my Twitter is CEO Winks, Winkz.
Awesome. Well, guys, you heard it from him. Go connect with him. Hopefully we'll see you inside the Wholesale Network, and we'll be back with another episode next week. Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks, Corey.